This is the journey to one Africa. Mr. Ambassador,
yeah,
it's good to have you.
Nice to have you too.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the startup, would you mind to at least share with the audience a little bit about yourself? Because there might be some people who do not know who is this great man next to me.
Great is a nice operative word, but I think I will take it.
Yes.
We are all great men as Africans. So I do not subjugate myself to being the only great man.
I love that.
You are great because you are intergenerational. What you're doing is great. All of us are great. We Africans, we are great, but we fail to recognize our greatness. So I'll start that as an opening shot.
Wow.
First and foremost, I am a Pan-Africanist, and I've always been, from time immemorial. I have been involved in anti-apartheid crusades during the early 60s and 70s, and have always supported the idea of a united Africa, and have kept to that over the decades. At the moment, I am a diplomat. I represent Antigua and Barbuda, the islands in the Caribbean, to the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I work very closely with my fellow brother and fellow Pan-Africanist, Pielo Lumumba. We were in Tanzania 7 years ago when we met.
Wow. That was the first time?
Yes.
Okay.
That was the first time we met. I went there to be the keynote speaker for Pan-African Humanitarian Award. And I insisted that the organizers do not promote me alone as a Pan-Africanist when we had a current, what I would call soldier warrior of Pan-Africanism, Pielo Lumumba, who I never met, came and shared the platform with me as a joint keynote speaker and an awardee. So they scrambled for a month before they get him, because I said, I'm not coming unless you get him. And we got him, and we were there together. And then when he flew in, we both just first met in the anteroom before we went on to do our keynote speech. And in that 15 minutes before, it's amazing that we formed two organizations. One was Africacy. Africacy is a form of system of taking away all the other influences of socialism, democracy, communism, etc. They are alien to Africans. So we formed Africacy, which is Africans doing it for themselves, by themselves. African solutions to African problems.
Yes.
And that is our organization. We're both co-founders and co-chairman of Africacy. And then went on to also form ADGI, African Development Goals Initiative, which means that when you talk about UN development goals, SDGs, etc., they are 60, 70 years in the future. In the meantime, our continent is being plundered and raped. We don't get any benefit. So what do? We now set agendas, which is what we are going to be telling leaders of the nations, because we don't call them African countries. They are nations. African nations who have been subdivided by colonials to create divide and rule. So our African Development Goals Initiative mean to set yearly goals, because the continent has to be accelerated. Set yearly goals with the African Union and the entire continent, that we set our own goals, not UN, SDGs, etc. Our own goals are yearly. So, for example, everybody sign on that this year the continent will focus on education for all. Next year, and they sign on to it, and at the end they report what they have done so far. Put the money into education for all, free education, because they spend money on useless white elephants and infrastructure projects that has no relevance to development of the nations that we talk about. And our next goal the following year will, let's say, be food security. Food security for all. Organic, non-GMO, and the Bill Gates of this world and Monsantos and all these others. They must get rid of them from the continent. The third year could be, let's say, security for all, making sure that we have disarmed, our people from killing each other, and get rid of all these bases on the continent. What are they doing there? You can't go and put any African base in any of these countries.
Yeah, it's impossible.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Right? So those could be goals that are set yearly and empowered. West Africa, Mali, Guinea, they're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Get rid of those people who are occupational forces.
Yes.
That's what they are. They're occupying our continent, right? And the only reason they're occupying our continent, they have no love for us, is for our resources. And, raping the resources.
Yeah.
So those are the things that we set up. So that is part of what I would call myself. Then we have been working on having Standard United Digital African Currency contract for us to do contracts in the AFCTA.
It's beautiful.
So it's called SUDAC, Standard United Digital African Currency.
Is it working already?
No, not as yet. We are working on implementing this.
It's exciting.
Because it's important for Africa to trade between themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So my role and function is to work with fellow Pan-Africanists to realize the dreams of the continent.
Yes.
It is time that we not just talk, but implement. Wake up. Africans have to wake up. We have to protect our resources. As I said, I'm also pioneering APLA, African People's Liberation Army. And the reason for that is that we take a bit out of the Chinese. Every community in China has a People's Liberation Army militia. We have to do the same. Why? Our communities have to protect our resources. We do not want to be employees. We want to be shareholders of our resources. If we don't have the technical equipment, then you bring your equipment, we arrange an agreement, and you now bring, in every community where we have resources, bring a factory, bring your skills, you make money and share with the community. So the communities are involved and they become shareholders, not employees. We don't want employees. Everybody must be shareholders of this, because this is our resource. You're not going to take our resource. Instead, we will produce and produce locally and export. We have to aim towards that, or use our own market, export within ourselves. So those are the type of things that we are talking about as Pan-Africanists. And it is that the continent now must look to the youth, people like yourselves. 80% of the continent are young people between the ages of 15 to 30. And they are technically savvy, they are high-tech, they are high-tech, right? And they know how to make things happen. We take a quantum leap from an analog age to digital age, and they now can work very well to improve their lives and the continent's lives by putting knowledge into power, right? And it's a knowledge-based economy Africa needs to develop with our youths. So if we find that the youths, right, find their leaders wanting all these old, what I call decadent men who think only of themselves and their family and leave the continent impoverished, the call for the youths is get rid of them. By any means necessary. Malcolm X said it. The revolution has started by any means necessary. So all young men and women of the continent, get rid of your decadent leaders who want to stay there for decades and keep your people impoverished. Get rid of them by any means necessary. West Africa started the process. That is Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso. Take a page out of their book, and they're all young men. Take a page out of their book and go that route. The continent has to be free. We have to get rid of collaborators. We have to get rid of neo-colonials. These are people who are puppets and work on behalf of Westerners, Asians, in the disinterest of the people. Do not allow, for example, Chinese to come and occupy your land and buy off your land. It is not possible. You can't go to China and take their land and utilize it for their own benefit. Listen to your elders. Look at the depopulation agenda that people have started. You know, they want to get rid of. If you look at America, all the indigenous people are gone. Australia, all the indigenous people are gone.
Yeah.
Think about it. They want to do the same with Africa because we have 80% of the world's wealth. So at the moment, African youth have to wake up and say, no, let's protect our interests in our areas. And if we have to, by any means necessary, get rid of those collaborators and neo-colonials who are keeping the continent back by lying in bed with these Westerners, Asians who have no interest. Do not allow these people to occupy and take any land. The land belongs to us. That's where our resources are. That's where our patrimony is. And those are very important.
Yeah. Well, what do you think? I love the introduction. That was actually really intense introduction. But I want to know, Mr. Ambassador, what will it take for the continent to liberate ourselves? You've spoken about the currency, and I think it's one of the things that we advocate as well, African currency. We wish to have that in the future. But apart from that, how long and how much do you think it will take for us to really liberate Africa?
Well, it has to come with leadership. The leadership has to come from within. You have to choose your leaders and choose them very carefully. And we have to have youthful leaders now. People who have the interests of the community. You start at the grassroots level. And once you militarize the communities who are there to protect your interests, and you have young leaders, get rid, as I said, of the old leaders and collaborators. I just said it. That is part of the liberation of Africa, because Africa will not be liberated by outsiders. Instead, they create divide and rule. They create wars. They provide guns for us to keep killing each other whilst they rape the continent and rape your resources. So liberation has to come from you guys now. You know, the baton has to be passed to you and say enough is enough. You know, do an African Spring, like you've had an Arab Spring. Do an African Spring and overturn the collaborators and the neo-colonialists, because they don't have the people's interests at heart. They prefer to go to Paris or to Britain or to London or the US or to Dubai and spend money, and they have money for themselves and their family alone, and they leave you impoverished. How would you liberate the country if you have these people in power? Get rid of them. You must.
Do you think the continent right now, and I'm asking this question because in our community we have a lot of people from the Caribbean and outside, diaspora African descendants. So do you think the continent is open and is ready for the
It's not about whether they are ready. You all have to set programs up for them to come back. You know, okay, Ghana made an attempt with Operation Joseph. Every single state, nation state, because I'm not calling them countries, we have to tear up that Berlin Conference because these people created borders for us. Tear it up. We don't need that. Every single nation state in the continent must say, welcome back. You were taken as slaves. Come back home. You are entitled to a passport. You are entitled to residency. Bring your skills. Repopulate Africa with Africans. We don't want these people who are planning to populate with their people. They bring prisoners from China. They bring all these people who are non-the-wells, we call them, and leave them so that they populate your geographic location. That's what I have to call it. Your geographic location. And they're very clever. You know, they put them in infrastructure projects going through the villages, and they stay in the village, they impregnate our women and leave them with half Chinese or half whatever children. And then these are the people, like they did in the Caribbean, who were the mulattoes. These are the people they will now want to push to become leaders of those nation states. So those people now, they have a right because they were born in the country, but they'll get support from the places that wants to depopulate us. So we need to repopulate by inviting the Caribbean diaspora, the African American diaspora, come home. And these people, when they come, have to think that this is not where you're coming from.
Oh yeah.
You know, participate locally in how the country is and help to develop it. Bring your skills, bring your money, bring your investment, you know, and come home. Have programs of return of Africans. Well, let's call it return of Africans from the diaspora. Come and repopulate our continent. We should be the ones that are coming home. So create a coming home project. It was started by Ghana. All the other countries should have that. Repopulate Africa for Africans.
Yeah, Mr. Ambassador, one of the initiatives that we did in Swahili Nation, we came up with this petition that it says One Africa right now, and few of the points that we address in this petition is that, hey, we need African Union passport. Because we know that that passport existed, but it's only to the leaders and people who are working in the AU organization. The plan was to distribute to the people of Africa, but that was not done. So our call to the African Union is that this is the time.
Petitions are right.
Yeah, this is the time to have this, and especially for our African descendants.
So now you petition your leaders that you want your AU passport. That's what you do. Petition your leaders. Say, yes, we have a nation-state passport, but we need an AU passport, and let's have it. And the AU has to be, you know, the vehicle to provide it. And African nation-states should not negotiate, never negotiate individually. That is why you have an African Union.
That was my next question.
The European Union, you cannot unilaterally go and do a deal without the consent of the European Union. So no deal should be done with any nation state on the continent unless the African Union has signed it on behalf of. So the only person that will be held responsible, it's like a corporation, will be the African Union. Why should all the other nation states be in debt? Why they should be, these leaders are so stupid. Why should you be bringing 54 heads of state, throwing them into buses and bringing them to say, come and meet me and we talk to you? No, you want to talk to us, come and talk to us at the AU.
Absolutely.
Don't come and even talk to us one-on-one. Come and talk to us at the AU. Tell us your program, tell us what you want. The AU has to underwrite it. The AU has to agree to it. And the AU will be the only people held responsible for any contracts that are signed. That has to change. The whole framework of how business is done by African states has to change.
How important, on that note as well, Mr. Ambassador, how important is it for Africa to come together right now in solidarity with all other countries, regardless of our borders and our tribes?
Africa just have to unite. They just have to sign an AU convention. African Union, AU already exists, right? Let us now form a United Nations of Africa, call it UNA, United Nations of Africa Charter, that we are now together as one, and we are going to work as one, and as I said, set up African Development Goals Initiative yearly, because we have to fast track and accelerate the continent. So that is the realism. The framework must be under a charter. We are now setting out development goals for us, independent of all the UN and SDG goals. That has nothing to do with us. Those are for a total international world order. The African world order and African Marshall Plan must be African development goals signed together by all the African nation states. I didn't say countries, because they've separated us into countries. But we are nation states. We have had our nations before. We governed ourselves before, isn't it? Advocacy, African development goals, Africans doing it for themselves, by themselves, African solutions to African problems. We don't need to inherit. We have seen that none of the things we have inherited has ever worked for the good of Africa. Go back to what we need, what we know. Our chiefs, our kings, our tradition, our way of life, our religiosity. Dump all these things. These things that brought Bible and guns was just to ensure that they keep us mentally enslaved. Get rid of that. Have our own lingua franca. You want to talk to us, speak to us in Swahili. You understand? We now need to accelerate in schools, because it has to start from now to get our youth speaking one language, looking at our own religion and the religions that became sacred to us and they asked us to get rid of. Give us the Bible, push the guns, take our country and take our resources. That's rubbish. We that stupid these days that we don't understand what was done. We are intelligent now. The Africans have advanced. We know now what the trick was. Get rid of the tricks. We know the tricks. Get rid of it.
Yeah. Finally, Ambassador, let us know a little bit about PAI, Pan-African Association.
The Pan-African, well, you're talking about Pan-African Institute. The Pan-African Institute is a great initiative, and why it is, you have Confucius Institute in every country in Africa. What the hell is that? Are we Chinese? You have Goethe Institute. Are we Germans? You have Alliance Francaise. Are we French? Right? You have British councils, etc. No, let's have our own Pan-African Institute where we collate our ideas, and what we are going to do is ensure that in every country in the world, we must put a Pan-African Institute there. So you, as countries of the world, and Western Asia, etc., okay, you want to put your institutes here? All right, learn Swahili, learn what we're about, partner with us. We are an institute on Pan-Africanism. If you are not part of our strategic plans, then we don't want to know you. Then within Africa and African nation states, every African nation state within the continent must have a Pan-African Institute, so that we collate our ideas. It's ideas that will build a nation state. So every nation state within the continent, you must now have a Pan-African Institute, and that is part of the plan. That of the entire nation states within the continent, we have an institute of Pan-African, so that leaders of thought and thinking on a Pan-African concept will move forward with a Pan-African ideology, and the institute will harbor all those ideas and translate them into implementable goals.
Your message to the youth, African youth?
Wake up, take charge, revolutionize, and get rid of collaborators and neo-colonialists.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ambassador.
Thank you.
Thank you.